Thank you for joining us for our devotional thought today, April 28, 2020. And over the next couple of days, I'd like to share just some thoughts from the life of Job, specifically focusing on the verse Job chapter 13 and verse 15, where Job says this, "Though he slay me, yet will I trust in him. I will maintain mine own ways before him." Now, Job certainly is an individual in the Bible that most of us as a church family were aware of. We're aware of when we say the name Job, or perhaps someone says, turn to Job chapter 1, chapter 2, another passage in Job, we can kind of get an idea pretty quickly of what the topic is going to be, whether that's troubles or trials. I came across a humorous illustration of someone that had a really bad day. Certainly didn't come close to Job's bad day, as it starts off in Job chapter 1. But there was a bricklayer who had an accident on a construction site, and he had to file a detailed report for his insurance company. And this is what he wrote on that detailed report. "I'm a bricklayer by trade. And on the day of the accident, I was working alone on the roof of a new 6-story building. When I completed my work, I discovered that I had a sizable pile of bricks left over, and rather than carry the bricks down by hand, I decided to lower them in a barrel using a pulley that was attached to the edge of the roof on the side of the building. After securing the rope at the ground level, I went back up to the roof, swung the barrel out, and loaded the bricks in the barrel. I then went to the ground and untied the rope, holding it tightly to ensure the slow descent of the bricks. You will notice I stated on the block number 2 of the accident report form that I weigh 150 pounds. The bricks, I was soon to discover, weighed slightly more than 500 pounds. My weight was not enough to keep me down. Because of my surprise at being jerked off the ground by the weight of the bricks, I lost my presence of mind and forgot to let go of the rope. Needless to say, I proceeded up the side of the building at a rapid rate of speed. In the vicinity of the 3rd floor, I met the barrel on its way up. That accounts for my broken ankle, lacerations on the left side of my body. This encounter with the barrel slowed me down enough to minimize my injuries when I landed on the pile of bricks on the ground. I'm sorry to report that as I sat on my back, looking at the empty barrel 6 stories above me, I again lost my presence of mind and let go of the rope. The empty barrel weighed more than the rope, so it came zooming back down, and this explains my broken arm." And you and I have most likely not had a physical day like this bricklayer as far as filling out his accident reform. But there are days in your life and my life when it seems that the troubles and the difficulties and the challenges pile up, and they keep piling. How is it that you and I as believers, those who belong to Lord Jesus Christ, how can we respond when we go through those dark valleys? When we go through those difficult times, how can we respond as Job did biblically in Job 13 and verse 15 again, where he says, "Though he slay me, yet will I trust. I will hope, I will expect, I will wait on him. I will maintain my ways before him. I will continue to hope. I will continue to expect." And the devotional thought for the next few days on Job's life from Job 13:15 is, I still believe. And I'm thankful that Job still had a belief in God even when things weren't smooth sailing, even when things were difficult and dark in his life. And so over the next couple of days, we're going to be looking at just some devotional thoughts from Job's life. First of all, today, I'd just like to focus on the troubles. Now, if we were to take the time to look at Job chapter 1 and Job chapter 2, we'd see that Job did lose quite a bit in a very short period of time. Again, the setting, Satan has come, and God says, "Have you considered my servant Job? What an upright and just and perfect man he is." And certainly Job was one who loved God and who lived for God, but Satan accused the Lord he accused Job of serving the Lord because of the hedge of protection that the Lord had put about him. And Satan accused the Lord and said that if Job were to lose everything, then he certainly would curse you. And so God, in chapter 1, lifted his protection, his hedge of protection. So, okay, Satan, you can take things away from Job, but you just can't touch him personally. And so in just a matter of minutes, Job lost 7,000 sheep, 3,000 camels, 500 yoke of oxen, and 500 she-donkeys. Now you think about all of those resources that he lost. And by the way, he also lost his sons and his daughters. There was a whirlwind that came, and the house that they were in fell apart, and all their lives were taken. So when it comes to Job's troubles, he lost a lot. He lost his family, his children. He even lost, in chapter 2, he lost the support of his wife, as she says, Job, you're better off just to curse God and to die. He lost his fortune. We've mentioned all of the livestock that he had lost. He also lost his fitness. In chapter 2, the Lord said to Satan, he did not curse me. And Satan said, well, that's because you haven't allowed me to touch him. And so the Lord says, okay, you can do anything, but don't take his life. And so Job was struck with boils from the top of his head to the bottom of his foot. And even his fitness, his health was affected with this loss. And then at the end of chapter 3, he had some friends that came and basically said, Job, the reason why all these bad things are happening to you is because you're not right with God. You've sinned. And so Job lost quite a bit in just the first 2 chapters of the book. And you and I, certainly, we have not lost as far as in comparison to Job, more than likely, while some have had great loss in their life. It may be in their family, the loss of a loved one to death, or the loss of a loved one to the pleasures of sin. And it has caused great trouble and great heartache in that family. It may be that your fortune, your finances have been affected, even with the virus recently, and you've lost almost everything that you poured into that small business, or you poured into those retirements, and now you look and you don't know what to do. It could be your fitness, and all of a sudden your health has taken a downturn, and you have great trouble in your life. Or your friends may have turned your back upon you. What is it that really gave Job his fortitude, his ability to not curse God, his ability to still trust in God? Well, I believe it was that personal relationship that he had with him. Now, the Bible doesn't specifically speak too much to that. We do know that he was upright, that he did walk righteously, that he did do what was right. And so from that we can draw a couple other principles. How is it that Job, when these troubles came into his life, that he didn't complain, that he didn't curse God, that he didn't give up? It was because of that deep relationship that he had with him. I think of Psalm 1 that says this: "Blessed is the man that walketh not in the counsel of the ungodly, nor standeth in the way of sinners, nor sitteth in the seat of the scornful. But his delight is in the law of the Lord, and in his law doth he meditate day and night. And he shall be like a tree planted by the rivers of water, that bringeth forth his fruit in his season. His leaf also shall not wither, and whatsoever he doeth shall prosper." You see, Job, when the difficulties and the troubles came into his life, he was still able to have strength, because his spiritual roots were planted deep into his relationship with God, to the choices and the decisions that he made to follow God, and to say no to sin, and say no to sinful desires, but to say yes to him. And because of that, because of his continued reliance and trust and committing of his ways to the Lord, he had that stability. He had that security. And so when the winds came blowing, And when the difficulties came, he was able to stand firm and he was able to flourish. I think about the parable that Christ gave in the New Testament, the parable of the sower that casts the seed upon the different grounds. And one of the grounds was the stony, the rocky ground. In that ground, the seed did begin to produce forth, but as soon as the sun came out, it dried up the seed because the seed didn't have a deep root structure to withstand the difficulty, the scorching of the heat. And so it is, when troubles come to your life and my life as believers, we can respond one of two ways. We can respond like Job, and those troubles, those difficulties drive us to the Lord. Drive us to depend upon Him. Lord, though you slay me, yet will I trust in you. I will maintain my ways before you. I'm casting all my care upon you, knowing that you care for me. I'm coming unto you because I am weak and heavy laden, and I need to find rest into my soul. And so may through the times of trouble, like in Job's life, may those troubles drive us to the Lord. Drive us to Him in prayer. Drive us to His Word to claim His promises and to seek His truths. The other response when trouble comes is we're not driven to the Lord, but we're driven away from the Lord. And I think that's pictured in the seed that took root and that began to grow in the stony ground in the parable of the sower. But yet as soon as the sun came out, it withered away. And so those who are not focusing, are not meditating, are not thinking about the truths of God's Word and believing and trusting and committing their way to Him, then when trouble comes, what happens is many times people are driven away from God. So from Job 13:15 and the thought that he still believed, I pray that you still believe when trouble comes. And when trouble came into Job's life, it drove him closer to the Lord, not further away. And I pray that when trouble comes in our lives, that we will be driven to the Lord, and that we will be like that blessed man in Psalm chapter 1, that will be like that tree planted by the rivers of water, that bringeth forth his fruit in his season. His leaf also shall not wither, and whatsoever he doeth shall prosper. In our next devotional thought from Job's life, we've looked today at Job's trouble. But tomorrow we're going to look at the temptations that Job faced. And we can very clearly identify that when trouble comes in our lives, how do we respond to the temptation as far as responding to that trouble? And so we'll look at how Job responded to that temptation when trouble came into his life. And I believe that we'll be encouraged. Thank you for joining us today for our devotional thought from Job's life. I still believe, though he slay me, yet will I trust in him. I will maintain my ways before him.